read your piece on Dave McCormick. I'm going to come back to it in a moment because I want to talk about Pennsylvania's next senator because I think he's going to win. But first, I want to ask you, Ron DeSantis dropped out. You spent a lot of time with all these people. You spent a lot of time with former President Trump, with Governor DeSantis, with Nikki Haley. Are you surprised that we've ended up in New Hampshire with two candidates, Trump and Haley, and it's just those two candidates?
Had you asked me a year ago at this date, yeah, I would have said yes. If we remember correctly, last year at this time, people were still, Republican voters were still kind of smarting from a lot of bad candidates that Trump endorsed and lost in Senate and House races. And they weren't happy with him. This was before all the indictments. However, I have a piece that's coming out today, and I wrote this down. Do you remember when President Trump went to East Palestine, Ohio?
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah. I wrote down on that day, because I was not very bullish on him. I thought he had a lot of problems. And I wrote down on that day that if this election, if he is somehow able to redeem himself, it started this day, the day he decided to show up. Because this was very symbolic of all the things that Trump got right in 2016. And so at this time last year, I would have been surprised. A month
and
ago,
the border issue has always been the border issue, and it came to him. The election issues that sort of came to Donald Trump. He didn't have to go to it. It came to him.
yeah.
And we'll talk about that depending on, but now I want to talk about Ambassador Haley for a moment. I believe the debates did their job. She did the best on the debates. And it was like the qualifying round, right?
Right. And she was rewarded for that, right? This is the reward. You get to go to this next place because you did so well in the debates. Would have been really fascinating to have seen Trump debating with them as well. I think that maybe we would have seen this over in the fall as opposed to right now. However, she earned her place where she is tomorrow, where she is in New Hampshire. And you know, the process of the primary, and caucuses are very interesting. It's always good to see healthy, robust competition. And it's not always wonderful to see the name calling and the negativity, but that's American politics.
I don't believe the race is over. I think we're going to go at least through March, but I've been wrong as often I've been right. What do you think?
I don't know. If she does not perform well tomorrow, Tuesday, yes, my days all mixed up. I've been everywhere. If she does not perform well or she underperforms in
what
New
is that
Hampshire,
number, Salena? What is that percent?
if she is not within 10 percentage points of Trump, it's a problem.
All right, that's a fair assessment. Now I want to turn to Dave McCormick because I have great hopes for the West Point graduate and Pittsburgh native, but he is getting hammered by Democrats as not really being from Pennsylvania, which is like saying I'm not really from Ohio. So if I moved back to Ohio 2 years ago and I wanted to run for Senate and I moved back to Warren and I ran, I would be from Ohio. I do not know how anyone doesn't think Dave McCormick isn't from Pennsylvania, but you're right about that. Explain that to people.
So I decided to take a look at this race, doing profiles of both men from their hometowns and who shaped them, right? Everyone's going to parachute into Pennsylvania and everyone's going to cut and paste and write the same story in a different way. But I think it's important to understand both men and where they came from and who shaped them. And I was, Dave McCormick's background in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania is like a really great 80s movie with Jim Belushi. The friendships that were formed in that area are the kinds that last forever. And
all the right moves with Tom Cruise. It's a 1970s movie. Yeah.
I mean, after spending a few days there, I'm like, I feel like I'm in the most delightful 80s movie that I've ever been in. And I'm having a really good time because these people, they are all like all of his friends, whether they went to the Secret Service or became the town police chief or went on to start their own businesses. They were all very competitive and very very. I think there was a lot of pranks that would happen. But what
Oh,
I
he's such a
noticed
yinzer. McCormick is
Yeah.
such a yinzer. And I don't know that anyone is going to be able to out yinzer him, can they? Can Bob Casey out yinzer him?
here's his challenge. He grew up in Scranton, but his dad was auditor general. He was state treasurer. Then he was governor. So a lot of their childhood was brought up in Harrisburg.
Yep.
And so, it's a different kind of experience. It's not a bad one, but it's very different from your average.
I cannot wait to read part 2. It's going to be the most interesting Senate race of 2024. And Salena Zito, of course, is all over it. For everything Salena Zito, follow her on Twitter at Zito Salena, the site now known as X, or go to salenazito.com.